it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu. And I'm that spitter, baby, they don't want you to see, but everybody's south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it
I hate
for
these
us.
average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete, I'm a verbal athlete. Deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building, my whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
Hey everybody, grand rising and good morning to all of y'all out there. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host Trey Holiday, and you guys know I got to bring in my guy, Big O. What up, Big O? Happy Tuesday, buddy.
Happy Tuesday, Trey Holiday.
Hey, it's looking like it's a blue Tuesday for us.
I'm saying we're finally all matched up. You know what I'm saying? And it's good because I'm always underdressed throughout. Oh, you blow me off set every single day, you know. But at least we're matched in colors today, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Keeping it nice and blue today.
All right, good stuff. Want to welcome everybody to the Morning Update Show and remind you that right now is the perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share this stream with people who you feel would appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald and KBCS 91.3 over at Bellevue College. Also want to remind everybody that you can listen to the Morning Update Show anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. We'll put the link right there for SoundCloud, but you can also listen at Google, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere that you listen to the Morning Update Show. You can check us out right there. we'll continue with this and keep letting people know the vaccine is free and readily available here in King County. Put the link in the comments right there for vaccination locations. You know, we talk about vaccine hesitancy, and we've got some stuff here that we'll discuss. But vaccine is out there. And I think that, you know, for the most part, at least in the municipality and probably some of the county, a lot of the people who early on were most at risk. We saw like a lot of our elders and, of course, people who are frontline workers and essential workers and things like that, everyday people. A lot of those people have gotten the vaccine, and now there's, I guess you would say that the vaccine hesitant, and then there's also the anti-vax, but there's the vaccine hesitant who are just like, nah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm rocking with it or not, but it's still a considerable number of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's still people that just want to see how it plays out for those who have been vaccinated. I think that this is nothing new, though, when we deal with a new vaccine, or a vaccination process. Oftentimes, you do see some people who kind of just want to hold out, wait out, and see how it plays out. So this is nothing new, but, definitely COVID has brought on some new things because it was so polarized and politicized, man. It really, you're talking about the anti-vax, man, that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah, that's a whole. I don't think no minds is going to get changed in that particular group, but there are people who are just vaccine hesitant, and I think people have questions, still a lot of questions, and you should have questions though. And I don't think we should ostracize people either though, because they have questions and they want questions answered about what they're putting in their body. And there's nothing wrong with we tell people to be informed about everything. We tell them to be an informed voter. We tell them to be informed, what's going on at your kid's school. We tell them to be informed and what's happening in the community. People should be informed as to, everything about the vaccine. So what we want to do here on Converge is to be able to provide that opportunity for information, especially for people, particularly for people who are vaccine hesitant. So we want to be able to, as they say in community, make space for those, and so we can have more just honest and open discussions. And people who might be on the fence, they're like, oh, okay, you've answered my question, and other people might be like, yeah, you've answered my question. But either way, we want to do that. Can't skip over this. I went over Mayor Durkin was doing a press conference yesterday, just right across the street. So we popped over there because I had a question about today. And I'll talk about our guests here in a second. And me and Curtis Delgado and Omi were all in our No Excuses shirts. And everybody was asking, they were like, what's No Excuses all about? And I'm like, yeah, man, it's political season now. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, Director of King County Elections Director Julie Wise is here tomorrow, and the ballots mail out tomorrow. So, you know what I'm saying? We need to keep that no excuses mindset going on with all these people running for office. You feel me?
Absolutely. No excuses, man. They got a road to pave, right? A pathway. And really, when we talk about no excuses, man, we're asking for those hard questions because we want to know what your approach is, your strategies, where's money's coming from, how it's going to impact the Black community. No excuses.
No excuses. And you saw right there on the image, a great way to support independent Black-owned media and let people know you're cutting the crap is to go to whereweconverge.com/shop and pick up. We have the No Excuses t-shirts and sweatshirts. I know it's still might be a little warm for the sweatshirt, but you can plan. I mean, by the time the general election is here, you're definitely in Seattle. You'll definitely be in one of those sweatshirts. Wanted to bring this up. This is new on our blog today, and we'll put the link up there. So we got Karen Johnstone, it's my vaccine story. And then also Trey Lamont's Jerk Shack bets big on Black wines. So two great reads right there. They've just put the links in the comment. Karen Johnstone, a big supporter here at Converge, shared her story with Jake Gravbrot as to why she decided to get the vaccination. And then we'll also be talking to people who are like, nah, I didn't want the vaccination. But that's up there right now. And then yesterday we saw that video there. It's like the Jerk Shack. Trey Lamont, he's betting big. He was like, man, I'm clearing out all wines in here that ain't Black owned. Yeah. And man, he's got great response. We tweeted that video out yesterday. and we put it online. Great response there. But he's betting big on black wines. And first up is Frechette Brewery over there in Benton City, in Benton County in Eastern Washington.
Yeah, I was just so excited that we were able to drop that story yesterday and really cover stories like this because, again, this is a lot of the things that may sit on the shelves of major media stations. You know, even if, you know, Trey Lamont's PR team, you know, tried to send something like this to King 5, it's something maybe they wouldn't be able to pick up. So I love that Converge is really there to showcase what's happening in community. There's a lot of nuance, man, and we got to be able to, you know, put a spotlight on it because that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is this, too, is that, you know, I mean, whether other media picks stuff up or not, it's like this is our role. You know what I'm saying? I mean, our command, because there's a lot of things I'll tell you for sure that Converge isn't going to cover. It's not in our lane. It's not. It might be beyond our resources and everything else. And so, like, this is our lane. This is what we like to cover. Is people in our community, you know, pushing their business, whether anybody else covers things or not. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not even going to put that burden on legacy media because that's a whole nother conversation about if legacy media has been for our community or not. But this is where we're at, you know, and so we'll continue to do that. Kind of got through the headlines there, and I want to give some space here for this next headline, and then I forgot to talk about our guest here today. Today is a big day, actually. This just released from the mayor's office. The mayor office is transmitting over to city council that $30 million, you know, everybody had 30 in the game, you know what I'm saying? The $30 million from the task force. If people remember the task force. And, you know, it's been a journey from that $100 million with the task force to city council going and breaking it down into 30, and 10 and some everything else. You know, we put out an article a few weeks ago that broke down where all the money was going and everything else. $10 million for HSD, they already did their RFP process. $30 million on the sale of the Mercer block, and they're in the RFP process right now. There's the task force, $30 million, and they're sending the legislation over to City Hall today. And then there's a $30 million that sits with Council Member Morales and Arts and Culture for participatory budgeting. And so the $30 million we're talking about today is under the mayor's task force, and we have Sharon Williams from the CD Forum, and then we also have Donna Moodie from the Capitol Hill Eco District. And you know, we promised people from day one we were going to stay on top of this money. And so today the money goes from the mayor's office with the legislation to city council. So we want to ask them some tough questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about impacts really felt in our community, so much of it is about following the money. And I think there hasn't been enough insight of, you know, community members to really understand how this stuff plays out over time, right? We see the headlines come out and then we're following headlines and it's like, wait a minute, what happened here? What happened there? There's a lot of stuff that's in between that. So I'm glad that we have these guys here today, again, to continue to follow the money. It's a huge story, yo.
Right. And I think we've, excuse me, we got a few slides in there before we go to this last story. This was the recommendations, the overall recommendations from the task force. So 4 priority areas for $30 million investment, and that's in the business, education, health, and housing. 9 recommendations to produce a collective impact. And, you know, these are, hey, look, it's the puzzle pieces. But yeah, so these are the 4 areas of where, and basically what happened is the task force got together around these 4 columns and then identified what money should go into what columns and what subgroups and, you know, into what projects. Now the task force doesn't determine who in community gets the money. The task force came together to determine which columns or which pillars should get budgeted and which types of programs. Then from here, ultimately, RFPs, the different departments in the city, like DEAL and HSD, people would put in RFPs to access those funds.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, it's important. One of the things that I think I find a thorough line here is that so many of the people that were on the streets protesting were saying the very same thing, right? That there needs to be direct investment into those 4 pillars that the task force identified. I think the 9 puzzle pieces that we saw there on that slide also like further the understanding of where those monies can go to really start changing the game. And this is really what it's about, man. It's about direct investment into innovative solutions that will have sustainable impact. And that's what really gets me excited about some of these opportunities around direct investment into communities, into community-led institutions and solutions. There's a lot of great things that we have right here in Seattle and throughout King County that are really on the mark, on the money with what they just proposed there. So we'll see how these RFPs go out, man.
Yeah, and with this information right here, this next slide, we'll put this on our website here right after the show. But there's a breakdown of, and we haven't, right. So here we go. So this is kind of how this money is broken down. And we have a slide that we'll have here in a little bit. I think we're still trying to put it together. Some of the information is still coming over here. But like you see under business there, equitable small and micro business capital, $5 million. That looks like it's going to be RFP through OED. That's the Office of Economic Development. Something there for HSD. Looks like $200,000 for a farm to table program. Under health, youth, health care, careers. What's that? $500,000 in the OED. It looks like Office of Housing has quite a lot of stuff over there. Ownership retention, $875,000 for ownership retention. Priority hire in WIMBY, $1 million, and that's over at FAS. So, this is the breakdown of this money, and it still has a ways to go. But I think that today is the day that, this is the day where it's like these guys have done their part. This task force has been through a lot, you know what I'm saying? And it's other stuff we want to ask them too, you know what I'm saying? We tried to follow this process throughout the process, and sometimes we were able to get access, sometimes we were not. Just like we followed all the processes here. But we did have, when we were up there on Capitol Hill, and she said she was going to come back. Sharon Williams is back, right, up on Capitol Hill, and definitely to have more conversation because we didn't have much time there. But the thing is, the numbers are the numbers. It's locked in. It's going over to City Council, and what's going to happen is the City Council is going to go into committee. And so then this legislation will need to get voted out of committee and then to the entire city council. City council will then need to vote to lift the proviso. And just to let everybody know, this $30 million is basically like, it's just kind of sitting there in the bank, and it can't be spent until city council actually votes to agree to spend it. Then from there, the money goes over to some of these different departments that we saw there on the screen, OED, Office of Housing, HSD, and then they make the RFPs.
Yeah, and this is why, so much of it is about, understanding these processes, guys. I mean, honestly, we don't want anybody to be confused in how things are going to have to play out. And ultimately, once that money gets to those departments, then it's on, all of those who have the solutions, all of those who have the framework, the work plans, all of that stuff to pull yourselves together so that you can showcase the brilliance of your solutions and make sure that that money is coming into the right institutions. And when I say the right institutions, I mean what we've seen in Black community oftentimes is that there's sometimes people that don't represent the people that they're there to serve that say they have the best solution. So I encourage all of you guys. We've been giving you guys this information. We keep saying that there's going to come a time where it's really going to come on to community, right? This was a huge community demand. So many voices said we need direct investment. Now let's show and prove exactly how that investment can be wielded in our communities for real long-term solutions.
Yeah, and I'll say this, excuse me, is this is the time, especially for community groups, organizations, or individuals, the money's coming out, now it's up to you. It's very easy to sit there and point at government. We point at government all the time, but it's very easy to point at government, right? And then hold government and everything else. Now, when it goes to RFP, this is time. If you're an organization that can provide services there to the community, this is the time. Get all your stuff together. The RFPs are going to be coming, and this money is supposed to be coming out before the end of the year. But now this is the time for community to step up, right? And this is where this line of accountability, this chain of accountability keeps moving forward. People were in the streets and they demanded some accountability and investment from government. Whether you agree on the amount or not, I think that everybody knows that it's like this is This has to be something sustained over time or bigger amounts. But either way, this money is here. It's going to council one way or another. It's going to come out of proviso, and then it's going to be up to community. So, this is it, and this is much different than what you're saying than somebody just being like, we're going to give money to this group or give money to that group. The RFP process is out there to make it at least a fairer way for community groups to be able to access these funds. HSD had $10 million for community safety ideas. They received over 84 RFPs back. And so people are paying attention. And believe me, if you're sitting out there thinking like, oh, ain't nobody applying for nothing. If they got 84 for 10 million, there's all kinds of groups and organizations that are out there. So it's going to be up to you if you get left behind, if you don't, make an effort, especially for these funds that are designated to bolster our community.
Yeah, this is why it's so important that, this information be shared right here. It's been important for us since day one because we understand there's a real lineage here of how this even transpired in the first place. It starts with people utilizing their voice, taking their stake back in this country, as we say, being involved in the civic engagement process, coming out and being in the streets. All of that these are the results of that labor. So we have to continue to follow the process, guys. As we've heard so many people, or I'll say so many people say in community, like, we got to continue to press. Those who have been in the streets, what are we doing now? How are we going to be holding these groups accountable that are going to get these funds? How are we going to hold the departments accountable to make sure that their processes in terms of RFPs are fair and equitable? All of these things are things that we all need to keep our eyes on because we do want to see real-term solutions at the end of this money. We don't want it to go through, a history will show us, man, the Black community has been excluded a lot of times. So we really got to show up and show out.
Yeah, and speaking of the protests, there's lots of groups that came out of the protests that are doing all kinds of things now. Some nonprofits and everything else. There's a perfect opportunity for them to apply. I see Food to Table there. Somebody was in the comments like, man, you know what? What's up with Black Star Farmers? You know what I'm saying? They really are going, they're growing food, taking it to the table. But these are the kind of things is that, these resources are out there for these organizations. And so, like I said, we're going to talk to the task force members today, and that's cool. And, we follow the legislation and everything else. But the best thing we could do at Converge is encourage and empower our community to get involved in the process. Excuse me, one more headline here today, and a real important one. Go ahead and put this up. Suspected gunman in Seattle Chop Zone homicide arrested more than a year later. Seattle Times, Sarah Jean Green on this. They arrested yesterday the suspect in the murder of Lorenzo Anderson Jr. So Marcel Long was arrested in Des Moines yesterday, the task force with the Seattle Police Department and the U.S. Marshals. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of surprising and shocking news, but in a good way. It's been over a year manhunt. There was a national fugitive warrant out for Marcel Long. And it looks like the U.S. Marshals and the Seattle Police Department, they tracked him right there to Des Moines. They picked him up yesterday. He was booked into the King County Jail at 4:15 p.m. yesterday. They're recommending a $2 million bond.
This is one of those things that's like, man, such relief, I know, for Donita, and family of Lorenzo Anderson Jr. And honestly, we needed to see this through. And I'm just thankful to be real with y'all. I'm thankful that, now the suspect has been arrested because oftentimes, there's nothing that will ever bring Lorenzo Anderson Jr. back. But when you talk about really being able to close out a case and have that sense of closure for the family that, this person that, caused such harm for them and such a tragedy for them now will actually face his charges. This is something that is huge. I'm thankful to hear this news, because I'll be honest with you guys, I've seen a lot of these shootings go I still think about Tyrone Love. Like, I'm always thinking about people who they were never, their killer, their murderer was never arrested, never apprehended. And so I love hearing this, because, the family really needs this closure. At the end of the day, nothing can bring him back. But at the end of the day, to have that guy out there for so long, that causes even more trauma, to be honest. So, you know what? I mean, here we are, $2 million bond. That is hefty, I'm sure. And really, it's been a year, man. I'm just thankful to hear this news.
Yeah, and this is, we check in a lot. And it reminds me it's time to check in again with the Seattle Police Department around these homicides, and quite a few open homicides here. Antonio Mays Jr. being one. It's over a year that's open. And of course, Lorenzo Anderson Jr., they had a suspect. They put out a warrant and they were able to get him. A lot of these cases, there's no suspect. But, in talking with them at SPD around this case, and Antonio Mays Jr. and some of the other ones, they say they're working them, They got an arrest right here with this case, and hopefully this also brings some hope to people like Alicia Dassa, who's they're waiting. It's a lot of people where their loved ones were murdered, and it's just open, and it's an open. There's a lot of people in our city that just impacted by this violent crime, and I was talking to Jake Grabrow yesterday. And I was just like, I'm glad that we ain't never stop on Converge saying Lorenzo Anderson Jr.'s name. I'm glad that we ain't never stopped saying Antonio Mays' name. I'm glad that we ain't never stopped saying Little Audie's name. Now rest in peace to Big Audie. I'm glad that we've never stopped saying Connor Dassa Holland's name, and there's so many other names that are out there, and it's continuous in our community, because of course this is big news and everything else, and with the suspect being apprehended, but it's like, man, there's a real problem in our city, and there's a real problem with gun violence, and there's a real problem with a lack of empathy and sympathy and humanity about what's occurring in our city right now. And man, I can't even lie. Like, being out there that night and you see everything through the camera, and the camera is real, but it's not, it's weird, because, you've got your filming through the camera mode on, and, thinking about that night up there at on Capitol Hill when Lorenzo Anderson Jr. Was murdered, and the struggle of trying to get him there to the hospital and everything else. I don't know. It's just, it sits with me, and then I remember, man, if it's sitting with you, how's it sitting with his family? How's it sitting with his mama, his dad, and his family, and everything else? This trauma that we encounter, either directly when a family member is murdered, or indirectly as somebody who witnessed a murder, or indirectly as a community that's traumatized around it. And I'm thinking, like, I was there, and so was so many other people. How many other people are still feeling some kind of way of what they witnessed there that day? And I don't have all the answers, but I just know that, man, we have to be able to figure out some approach here, because our children are dying, and they continue to die in these streets. And a lot of times it just ends up being a tweet, a small byline in a paper somewhere, and we're losing our young people. And we got to care more as a city. We're supposed to be a better city than this. We have to figure it out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is why it's so important to keep these stories alive. You know what I mean? When we talk about following these stories, when we talk about checking in with the families, giving opportunities for the families to share, their stories, their perspectives, and be embraced by community in love, because so much of what they're dealing with is pain. And I just think about us losing young people. And so much of it is around gun violence. And then you have someone like Kalani Bolton, where it's like 12 years old, went to the urgent care for asthma attack and just couldn't get air from urgent care. I mean, we have to continue to show love and compassion and empathy for our community, because these are community families no matter what. And for me, that's why the impact is a rippling effect. It's felt by so many that maybe you never even knew that young person, but their auntie, their uncle, their mom, their dad, their family, their grandparents. You grew up around them. These are the ways that rippling effect plays out. And so you're absolutely right, man, in terms of us keeping these stories alive, keeping these young people in our hearts and in our minds and their families, because at the end of the day, they really need justice when they lose their loved one like this. And this is one case that we can now see how this plays out in the court system, see how it plays out there. And, just giving my love to Donita and all the family over there for Lorenzo Anderson Jr. This is something that we were all praying for, meditating on, visualizing for you all, is for this suspect to be arrested.
Yeah, and I think that for some of us, we just seen too much for too long. I was at Garfield High School when, friends being murdered in high school all those years ago. And it's something that we still dealing with right here. It's a generational issue. And until we put a sense of urgency in our community, we, the people in our community, yes, government can do their part in all these different ways, but we have to as well have a sense of urgency in our community, that we as community members, they're like, man, we're not going to have this no more. What can we do better in our community to impact the trajectory of these young people that are out there picking up these guns? Like, man, we just got to do more. And, ideally and hopefully and aspirationally, we talk about like what Councilmember Gurmai talked about, like, man, how can we take this whole approach here of treating gun violence like an emergency, like the COVID and everything else? Hopefully an approach like that can come about. But you know what? One place that we can always start is just within our own homes and within our own community. So, again, SPD and the U.S. Marshals on the arrest last night of Marcel Long, the suspect in the murder of Lorenzo Anderson Jr. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, I'm going to hop up out this seat, and it's going to become the hot seat for Sharon N. Williams from the Central District Forum, one of the task force members. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey everybody, we all know that COVID-19 has had a major impact on everything this year, even energy bills. Puget Sound Energy understands the ongoing struggle that's facing its customers. And this is why they're offering a COVID bill assistance program of up to $2,500 per qualified customer. If you or anyone you know are currently behind on energy bills, please contact PSC today to discuss all of the assistance options available. Visit psc.com/COVID to learn more.
Hey guys, it's Besa Gordon from Converge Media. You can catch me on my show Rewind with Besa, which airs every other Saturday at 2 p.m. anywhere you watch Converge Media. Now, I know a lot of us still have questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. However, here are a couple things you don't have to question. Everyone 12 years and older in Washington State are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. It's free, and you don't even need insurance or citizenship status to get vaccinated. If you still have questions, and I know you probably do, you can visit kingcounty.gov/COVID for additional information. You can also call the King County COVID-19 call center at 206-477-3977 to get COVID-19 and the vaccination questions answered, get translation services if needed, set up an in-home vaccination appointment for yourself or someone you know may not be comfortable at a vaccination site due to a disability, anxiety, or other reasons. Look, with summer being here, now is the time to get all your COVID-19 vaccination questions answered so we can all get out the house and live our best lives again.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and joining me in the studio right now is Miss Sharon N. Williams of CD Forum. What's up, Sharon?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you again.
I know. And we keep bumping into each other in community. That's how you know we're really out here, okay?
Yeah, we out in the streets.
We're
Don't
out
play.
here.
Don't play.
Well, I'm really glad that you're on today because we've been talking about this money, trying to follow this money. You were part of the mayor's task force around this $30 million and how it's going to get wielded into community. And I know we have a slide we're going to show, but I want you to be able to just talk about your experience there in the task force. And now it's coming out, man. You guys are putting it out
man, there. It's oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Yo, it was rough from the start. I'm not even gonna lie. Everybody questioned why the mayor wanted to do this task force, who from community was gonna be on it, what was the purpose, where was the money coming from, all of that stuff. And some of my peers on the task force was being attacked, their jobs, things of that nature, and it was just like rough. And we hadn't even started doing anything. It was just that it was an announcement that there was a task force. And then it took a long time for us to do research and figure out what was needed for the community. And then it started to click. I mean, we've been in this process for 9 months. We met every Friday for 2 hours. I think it's over 30 hours of meeting and just drilling and learning and hearing from the city and things of that nature. And then we started breaking out into our pillars, our business, our education, our health, our housing, and then we'll come back together. And it was like, yo, we're doing this work. And then now to get the recommendations out, to have the transmittal come out today, it's like we're there. But now we just said it last week in our meeting. We was like, and the work is just beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So much of it is that because I think that it's a multi-pronged effort.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you guys use puzzle pieces to talk about kind of breaking down those 4 pillars into 9 basic elements of where all of this money can be wielded. So you're really here to talk about this $8.8 million, very specific. Curtis, if you want to put the slide up here, it helped the audience understand this breakdown.
So for housing, we really wanted to focus on getting people ownership and really taking back the rental aspect of things, right? My committee with me, Rizwan from Muslim Housing Services, and Pastor Carey from First AME, and Pastor Willis, who was really yo, how do we get people to not even just rent, but how do we get them to lease to own? And we knew that down the line that's people have tried this before with developments, but the developments were kind of greedy, right? And so it never worked. But what if the city went behind that, right? What if the city took control of that and really worked on developing that process so that we can put the money back in the hands of the people, because we know that wealth is with ownership and not with rentals. And then we also noticed that, that we was doing research, and it was like housing prices are going up and people aren't making enough money in Seattle, so they would never get to own. So how do we help this process? And so we definitely did the lease to own program. And then it's about retention, right? How do we keep people in their homes? How do we make money available for that? And how do we and that's all linked to generational wealth, right? Yeah. How do we get the conversations within the homes of saying, we can use this equity to do this for this house. We don't have to sell it. We can do this with this house and things of that nature. So we can do what our great-grandparents did, right? So my great-grandparents owned their house, and now we still have that house in the family today, and they've been gone for like 30 years. And so how do we get that conversation? So we really challenged the city, and we're challenging the city to start doing generational training programs, and not just in housing, but in every aspect of our pillars, and start to grow and develop. So it's not just a one-time thing, that is something that the city embeds into their current practice of saying, how do you do this? And then it's also about technology, right? When you go to the city for housing, and my friend Donna Moodie, who here can talk more about this, but you go to the city for housing, right? Then they don't talk to you about, well, are you a small business owner? Or do you have health care? They just talk to you about housing. Yeah. And so we want them to create a pipeline that actually creates a technology that talks to each other. So if you go to the housing department, things will pop up and say, hey, you have these resources because you're a small business person, and you don't have to just go from one thing to the next, that you know what's available for you.
I think that's really the beauty of technology. You can create the one-stop shop model in terms of treating the whole person. So many in community talk about, how do we treat the whole person? Mm-hmm. And they talk about it in various formats, but I think when we utilize that same ideology into all of these things, we really do start to see sustainable change. Well, I think one of the things that I have a question about, because I know you guys did extensive research on this, but the lease to own model, if I go back in time, I think about when my grandmama had, lease to own furniture, right? Oh, yeah. And Rent-A-Center would be like, hey, you ain't paid in a couple months, we coming to get that couch, right? We coming to get that fridge. Okay, so how have you guys thought about that? Because a lot of times that therein lies a loophole in terms of whoever the profiteer is, the developer, whoever, that they can be like, wait a minute, y'all ain't doing right, we gonna come and snatch this. How have you guys thought about that in terms of the model? Education,
and as well as making it so that they're in the program, they're in the cohort, and so it's about keeping them there and keeping them in the program, not getting them out the program. And so it's really about community in a different kind of way, right? We want them to not only be invested in having their space, but invested in their neighbors having their spaces. So eventually, the hope down the road is that everybody in the building owns the building. And then you have that invested interest, and somebody can't take it away. And why they can't take it away? Because it's generational wealth, and we're helping to give the training so you know how to do the money. It's that thing of, I run a nonprofit, right? And it's that thing of the first time we got our big cash, right? Like $500,000. I was like, whoa, what do I do with that? But the organization that gave it to me didn't just give it to me. They gave me consultants to go along with that. So how do we keep people in the pipeline to make them know that the education part, like, here's how you stay in it. This is what you need to obtain. This is your budgeting. This is all this information that you need to stay in the program, so they can't snatch it.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing, because I think so much of it is about, okay, well, we've done our part. We're going to go ahead. Y'all got this, and we out. No. But really, you guys are saying, nah, this is really like, nah, we're going to come along this process with you. We're going to make sure that there's a lot of things put in place so that you feel supported throughout the entire process, which I really think is key. And I know Donna will probably hit on this a little later, but how did you feel about that final breakdown? I saw it going into all of these different departments. It goes to the RFP. We've talked about the damage of the RFP process. What was that like in terms of getting this money money out the door.
It was crazy because after we came up with our recommendations, then we spent about a month working with the directors from different city departments, right? And trying to break it down, make sure the monies made sense, make sure they had the support they needed in the department to make it run. And then I just want to let y'all know that it's now 18 recommendations that falls into those 4 pillars. And then we saw it and we was like, whoa, this is a lot of work. But we did that, right? We did that. And how do we keep doing that? And so now we're talking about like trying to figure out what our recommendation to the city is about how to make sure that task forces like this continue. So that's also going to be in our paperwork, right? As we say, I know people have problems with how this task force was selected, and so how do we put in a process that says, okay, so people can feel more comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, it was the first process that I had been into where I had different cultures at the table, that we were truly BIPOC. Yeah. Truly BIPOC, and really sharing our stories and getting to know each other. I mean, just this last Friday, I went to Muslim Housing Services groundbreaking, and because Rizwan is my guy on there, so building those relationships, and and we always try to put community, we always put community first. It was like, how does this fit the community? Yeah. How does this fit community? And I'll give you an example of that. And I'll just do real talk, and they probably gonna get mad at me. Love you, Larry, from Anchor Group. But there was a point not too long ago where they was like, yo, we're gonna take like $500,000 out to pay y'all stipends and to pay our consultants. And that's gonna come out of the $30 million. And do you know, we said, no. That is not happening. $30 million goes to the community. You need to find this money somewhere else. And we was ready to walk away at that point. We was like, we had done all this work, but it meant that much that all this money goes to the community and not to us. Like, y'all didn't talk to us about that beforehand, so here we go. So we had to take some stands throughout this process and learn the city system as well, right? I'm an artist. Yeah. I know nothing about the city system other than what I learned through the Arts Commission. And so we was learning by doing, and that's how we do it, right? And that's why we talk about apprenticeships in the housing program as well.
That's really a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that, because my last question really is about how so much of that confusion around the mayor handpicking Black folks from community and BIPOC folks, if you want to say Black, Indigenous, people of color folks. I always love to say the global majority. Y'all know I don't like BIPOC, so global majority, right? But
I don't like BIPOC either.
You know what I'm saying. But when I think about how those people are selected, right? They asked me, and I was like, let me check with my people, and everybody's like, nah, and I was like, hey, nah, right? Right. But ultimately, I think that's really important. I really feel like so much of it is because the trust between the mayor's office and many folks in the community has not been there. Right. So how do you feel that this process may lend itself to kind of building that, maybe establishing some type of foundation for what that kind of trust and relationship can really look like?
Man, I hope it does. And that's why we spent, I'm glad Councilmember Juarez was on the committee with us as well. So she had representatives there with us every week. And so the thing that we talked about was, we're not the mayor's task force, we're the City of Seattle task force. And that means that we represent the mayor, city council, the community, and us, right? And we're part of the community. And so it's all about coming together, and we hope and pray that everybody learns from this process, and that they learn that if we do it together, we can grow. And this is just a step. So like y'all said earlier, right, we need y'all to push, right? You see go to the website, seattle.gov, look up the Equitable Communities Initiative Task Force, see the breakdown, and know what departments that you have to go to say, yo, where's this at? How do I get more of this? Just push us, because we want to be held accountable, and we want to hold the city accountable. And that's what we're talking about now, because people like me, I'm not going anywhere. I'm like, how do I stay in the process for as long as I can, even when we do the RFPs and things of that nature?
Yeah, that's important, Sharon. Yeah. Thank you so much for your energy on the task force. Thanks for being connected and staying connected to community throughout all of this process, and making sure that we're engaged and informed, and that our audience is engaged and informed. So thank you so much again for joining us on the Morning Update Show
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Absolutely. You guys heard it there from Sharon herself. The truth of the matter is that we're going to continue to stay on top of this process. Coming up right after the break, Omari is going to be sitting down with Miss Donna Moodie of the Capitol Hill Eco Districts. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Welcome back to the Morning Update Show. My name is Omari Salisbury. I'm now joined by Donna Moodie. Donna with Capitol Hill Eco District. How are you?
I'm great. It's really nice to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the Morning Update Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's good. I'm glad that we put a call out and you guys answered the call. Been wanting to talk to task force members here for a while. I know we had an opportunity to talk to Sharon last month, but I was 26. So I guess we should tell people, 26 members on the task force. It's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, but it was a really amazing group of people. I love the work we did, and I also love the opportunity to get to meet and work with a lot of those people.
Tell us about that process of being there, on the task force. And I will say this, just in full transparency, we as members of the media, we didn't get as much insight into the process as we would have liked. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We wanted to follow the process. We wanted to interview people during the process. So now here we are at the end of the process. All I can do is ask you, how did the process move along?
I hear you, and I hear you about that feeling that we were quiet, but I think we were quiet because we were busy. And we were really dedicated to kind of shutting some noise out and getting some work done. So we broke ourselves into groups, and our groups were pillars. The pillars were business, education. We had a housing one, and then also a health one. And I was on the business one because I also own Marjorie Restaurants, so I'm a small business owner, and I felt like I could contribute to that. But the way we worked together, we talked a lot. Like, we would meet individually in our pillars and then also meet as a group. So we were very aware of what everyone was doing, and we would talk about it and share ideas, share data, collect information together. And I was really surprised at just how busy the work was and how we all kind of had our heads down and really just focused on how do we get a program to get this money out and get it well spent and get it to the community and not caught up in the bureaucracy or the red tape of who distributes it and how it's distributed. Right.
And, we always say community here, and it's a word that's thrown around a lot in the city.
I hear you.
How intentional and how successful do you think that this task force was in being able to represent, yes, community as a whole, but there's all these different areas, like elders are a member of our community, and even within elders, there's some elders that are homeowners and that are dealing with issues around MHA and taxes. There's some elders that are that are looking for affordable housing. There's our young people, and our young people, many of them who are just moving straight ahead might just need a little bit of support. And then we also have some young people that we're working with over here in issues around violence and gun violence disruption. And there's business, there's such a range there. How accountable and intentional were your actions in being representative, as much representative of the community?
One of the things that I can speak the strongest to business, although I do have familiarity with the other pillars that we did. But one of the things we did with business was to work with OED And I was really surprised because when we started working with the OED, when they came in to offer some help, the Office of Economic Development, they showed us how we can take that 30 million and make it actually work. And we worked with Ken Takahashi, and he explained like some of the tax regulations that we had to deal with, the whole idea with like gifting and penalties so that we could actually maximize the 30 million, which for business was 7.5 million. We took 2.5 million of that and put it towards technical assistance, which might also seem ambiguous, but a big part of that was to do outreach to different members of the community so that we're not targeting the same old people that always hear about programs, but that we're actually doing outreach to get to the elders, get to the young people that want to start up a business but think it's impossible, get to people that are in business and struggling and think they're just going to fold, but maybe with a little bit of help they might be able to cross the finish line and actually have a successful business. We really wanted to talk to people about how to use the money once they get it, to make sure that people aren't getting money and then they get so busy that they're not really able to take full advantage of what they've been given. So a big part of our focus was how do we get people money, make the interest rates low for anything that is a loan, and also try to make a lot of it grants or forgivable loans where people don't feel like they've just gotten a new burden along with the burden of having a small business in the city.
Right, and one of the things you talk about right there when you say burden, a lot of times there are some resources that are available, but the barrier to entry is very high for people in our community, especially business owner. I'm a small business owner. You look at some of these things, 70, 80 pages, all kinds of documentation. You're just like, and you keep it pushing. When you're talking about making these resources available for small business owners or people who aspire to be in business, and we're going through this RFP process over here, what resources might be out there to be able to assist people in getting through that RFP process? A lot of times that might be their first time ever doing it.
I'm so glad you asked that. And the other thing, Trey mentioned it a little earlier too, is trying to look at like the whole person. And I think when you talk about business owners, a lot of times, especially people of color, Black business owners, Indigenous business owners, they feel like they're not talking to their people to help them get started. And so one of the things that we asked OED was to really hold up some of the CDFIs to actually have consultants on their staff that looked like us, so that you're not kind of groveling for money with people where you feel like you don't have any dignity left. We wanted people to feel like we believe in you, we see a potential business success here, and we want to talk to you about how to do that better. We want to help you fill out this form. In fact, we want to go to some people and say, have you heard about this? You should come in and fill out this form, and we will help you fill out this form. We know they're tedious. We know they're hard to fill out. We know sometimes people don't understand when that first payment is due or what the interest rate is or how they can make a loan become a forgivable loan or a relieved loan or how they can turn it into a grant. Like, our whole focus was how can we make this easier, more approachable, and more successful, and keep our city full of a diverse amount of businesses and not start to have big boxes take over some of the empty shelves we have right now.
Right, and I think we have a slide here with some of were they able to put it together? So you said it's 7.5 million, building opportunity through small business support, provide equitable small and micro business capital, offer small businesses technical assistance on financial health, digital tools, and construction support. Now, with this, like many other things, with this, what a lot of times in government is really good at throwing things out, but there's no metrics to be judged against. How do you guys know if these efforts were successful? And to be fair, it's almost nothing especially in government, it's 100%. But like, what kind of things do you guys impose upon yourself as a task force, and even right here in this process, and maybe in the legislation, that the checks and balances to this?
I really appreciate your skepticism, because I think a lot of people in our society right now have skepticism about government, about handing the money out, and what happens after that money goes into the hands of people. And I think one of the things we really wanted to do was keep checking in with people, also so they don't feel like you get money and then you're like done. And it's not one and done. Maybe you come back, you need more, maybe you find out that you could mentor another business. Maybe by people repaying with low interest rates, we keep a fund going. So a lot of our focus was to stay in touch with people, which is the technical assistance. Maybe people want like a little bit of marketing support. Maybe they want some education on how to modernize some of the digital or technological aspects of their business. So we really wanted to stay in touch with people and not just like do a transaction. We wanted a relationship. We want a relationship of small business community members that are talking to each other, supporting each other, and advancing and maybe scaling businesses so that we can start to create some generational wealth in our own communities.
Right. And now $30 million, you represent the business sector there, 7.5 million in the business sector. Is this one-time shot of $30 million enough? Or are you guys coming at this where you're looking to try to rally for sustained investment over amount of time? So I'll be honest with you, in reading the comments, people are like, yeah, okay, it's 30 million.
Right.
Then what? You know what I'm saying? Hey, we tried it, we put 30 million out, there's nothing that's sustainable. What's the big picture around this investment?
So I think a lot of things about what the big picture looks like, but one thing I think is like if someone's saying, here's $30 million for your community and our community is in need, like then I want to try to figure out how to spend that money and get it back to the community. And if someone is also saying to me, if you make a model example of how this can be spent, and it's such a great model that we will duplicate it and replicate it and keep trying to fund it, you know, that's what I want to do. I want to make this so great that it continues. I don't want it to just be a one-time investment. I want it to be a pillar of what can happen when we invest in our communities. And when you think about the damage that has been done to a lot of communities in our city, people of color, the indigenous community, particularly the Black community, I don't think you can, $30 million is never going to undo that. Neither is 100 million, neither is 200 million. It's infinity what we owe those communities. But if we can start, and if we can start to build them up and start to have them have the generational wealth that many white communities have that have gotten breaks along the way, then I think we start to make an attempt to level the playing field. It's going to be a long time to level it, but we can certainly make efforts.
Right, we're over time, so I'll make this the last question here. How committed are you as a task force member of seeing this process through? Now, you guys have done your part here, as in that the legislation has now been transmitted over to City Council. They need to do their part to lift the proviso. People like OED and HSD and OH need to now do the RFP process. Community now needs to respond to the process. So the actual dollars reaching the streets, I know that you guys want to see it happen before the end of this year, but how committed are you now in this process? Is it now that it's transmitted, you're done, and you wait and see, or are you committed to seeing this process through?
That's a great question for someone like me. I'm committed. Like I'm in this. I want to see it be successful, and I don't want to just see success for this year. I want to see it for years to come. I want to see the BIPOC community build small business in the city, because I think the city will be a better city with that structure of small businesses. So I'm not just doing it for this one time only. I really want to see our city flourish, and I think our city will flourish with the diversity of many small businesses.
All right, good stuff. Donna Moodie. I didn't know you own Marjorie's, huh?
I own Marjorie's. You ate there. You know that.
Yeah, but
stop trying to act like you don't know.
But I did. God's honest truth. I didn't know you were the proprietor.
Yeah, it's my place.
I'm gonna have to stop by more often now.
That's why I'm such an advocate for small businesses. We need to see ourselves there.
I thought you were gonna say that's why the drinks were so strong for you. Thank you for stopping by.
And you're welcome anytime at the restaurant. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna pass by there. We're gonna take a quick break right now. I know we're over time. When we come back, Trey Holiday rejoins the set. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. Joined again by Trey Holiday. So Trey, we heard from 2 task force members here today. There's 26 of them altogether. The money, at least the concept of where they want it to go, the legislation is now over with City Council. City Council is going to go into committee. If it gets voted out of committee, it'll go to the full council. If the council approves that, the proviso will be lifted, and then it'll go over to the different city departments. Where you got DO, Department of Education and Early Learning, Director Chappelle over there. You've got Office of Housing with Emily Alvarado over there. You've got OED. I'm not sure who the OED director is, and FAS, and maybe a few others. I mean, what do you think?
You know what? It's a great breakdown. And I love that Sharon and Donna both came on to really speak about their experience, but also how they really brought their experience to the table on the task force, what that's going to look like in terms of these solutions, man. It all comes down to those RFPs, you know. And honestly, this is one of those things that I really am hoping does not get held up in the committee, in the council. Like, let's not debate it anymore, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this investment at this point, you know what I'm saying, all these investments need to come out. I mean, a lot of them are in motion. Said HSD should probably actually be making some announcements here probably in the coming weeks around the $10 million for improvements in public safety. I would just say this, is that, again, want to continue to challenge community. I put a link in the comments earlier when you had Sharon in here with the article that we put out a few weeks ago that breaks down all this money, every single document that's been attached to it, and what websites you need to go to and how to do everything else. And once the proviso gets lifted here, we'll update that and we'll get that information out there to you. The best thing that we can do here at Converge is get you actionable information, and that's why it's important that we challenge community members that if this money's getting ready to come out and this is money for community, and you're able to provide a service that's under these pillars, that people take advantage of it. And that's the short term for today. And I think the big term, the long term, is that there needs to be sustained investment. And we look at this, everything starts somewhere. But we look at this, and there needs to be a commitment to sustained investment, because a lot of stuff is going to take more than one shot for the really to be able to right this ship.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And, I know we're over time, so we just want to really be thankful to our guest today that came on to explain some of these processes behind the scenes and give you guys the information y'all need to be able to stay engaged in the process and make informed decisions for yourself. If you know people that are out there in community doing great work, that have organizations or great ideas around some of the use of this money, please encourage them to be a part of this RFP process once it gets to that point. Let's continue to stay engaged and involved, y'all.
All right. Like you said, overtime for real today. Woo. Yeah. Any last words?
See yourself as part of the solution. It's one of the ways you can do it is by making sure those that are engaged in this process. We worked hard for this money to come into the city and come into community. So let's make sure that we continue to work hard to make sure it goes to the right services. So see yourself as part of those solutions, guys.
All right. Any programming notes today? No, look at you guys. You happy, huh? We getting out of here. In that case, as usual, want to remind you to go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of heaven.
a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Sing it again now. Won.